fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Live. I am your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin, here once again to bring you a full practice recap from the 2023 Senior Bowl here in Mobile. Of course, this is the third and final day of practice on Thursday. A very lively one. Thankfully, the rain did hold off. It was a little bit chillier, a little bit cloudier, so it was very familiar to me from living in Syracuse, but I know a lot of people were kind of cold today. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get into the biggest winners from today. There were a lot of them. There were definitely some new names that popped up that we're going to get to. Definitely some players that sort of solidified themselves as kind of like the clear winners of the week. So we'll get to some of them too. I mean, I'm going to sort of go through all my notes and videos and things like that over the next few days to sort of come up with a overall takeaways, overall big winners sort of piece. And that's going to probably come out on like Friday or Saturday of this week. But let's break down first what happened today, Thursday, at the Senior Bowl. It was a better day of practice, I would say, for the national team, which has been probably the more disappointing of the two teams. I mean, I think the American team just has way more talent, so it's a little bit unfair. But we did see some new players sort of step up today. A big one right away was a tight end, which we haven't had a lot of standouts there. I mean, I think all the tight ends from the national team, Cincinnati's Josh Wiley, and Clemson's Davis Allen have had a handful of good plays here and there, but no one really stood out until Payne Durham today, who had several catches in the red zone. He had a great deep pass, just really showed off that sort of massive frame that he has and the really good hands that he also possesses. I mean, he's not a burner. He's not someone that's moving quickly downfield, but he's really big and he's a really good blocker too. And it's clear that he has good hands. That's definitely going to help him in the NFL, right, to carve out a role as a potential tight end too. Again, not someone that's going to really threaten athletically, but in the red zone, you sometimes just being bigger and nastier than your opponent is what you need. And he and Payne Durham from Purdue definitely made it his case today. Some new names at wide receiver too from this group. Obviously, Jayden Reed again was probably the best overall receiver here. I mean, he's just really good. So it's kind of, I'm not going to beat the drum there too much, but Jayden Reed has been awesome. He's probably been the best overall receiver from this group outside of maybe Tank Dell, who was not present today. I don't know exactly what happened there, but we did not see Tank Dell. So I hope he's okay. But he sort of, I think, proved himself adequately the first 2 days as one of certainly the flashiest player in terms of videos. But Nebraska wide receiver Trey Palmer is definitely someone who stood out today. I believe he stood out actually the last couple days. I didn't really get a chance to watch him. It must have been just bad timing with me sort of going between the offensive and defensive line stuff and the receiver DB stuff. And I guess Palmer did pop off yesterday in particular. I just didn't really get a good glimpse at it. But today he also did a great job. Had a really nice sideline toe tapping catch. Had some good catches in the red zone. So I think Trey Palmer is someone who started a little slow early in the week, but has really come on the last 2 days. And he did a great job today. Excuse me. A name that we haven't called at all was UNC Charlotte wide receiver Grant Dubois. Who really looked like he was really struggling early in the week. He was a late call up to the Senior Bowl. UNC Charlotte player, that's a tough thing for him to come into this environment and do well. And he struggled the first 2 days. He had a nice bounce back today, though. He had a really nice move against Kentucky corner Keydron Smith for a touchdown. He had a touchdown in the corner of the end zone working against, I can't remember the name of the corner. It might have even been Riley Moss, but so he had a bounce back day and definitely proved that he deserves to be in this group. I don't think he's a name that's going to really pop off and be more than a day 3 player at this point, but I think you saw that there's certainly some potential there. And then I definitely wanted to give a shout out to Stanford's Michael Wilson, who sort of has always been like on the cusp of being in these right recaps, but hasn't really made it in yet. He's certainly been like deserving of it. But this today's practice, Michael Wilson did stand out. He had a couple of really nice routes. He's just a really good route runner with good hands, and I think that's sort of his game at the NFL. but he did a good job on Thursday for sure. Moving on to the running back group. Chase Brown from Illinois. You guys know that I really like Chase Brown. He's just been a really good player throughout the whole Senior Bowl. He was once again the best running back on the national team by far. And he just really good receiver, really dangerous, quick runner. He's just been really consistently good. So he's helped himself. And then Northwestern running back Evan Hull is a guy I had written down too. Hasn't really done anything in the run game for the most part, but as like a check down guy, I think he's been really dangerous as a receiver. Just really, really quick, very difficult for linebackers to cover, particularly in man coverage. And I think he's definitely someone who has made a clear case as a third down back in the NFL. What's up, Trace Holbert? Jason Games, what's up, man? Yeah, no, it's been helpful that it's been cloudier, right? So I haven't had to, I haven't been blasted by the sun nearly as much, so that's good, for sure. But welcome in, guys. Thanks for coming in to talk some Senior Bowl. I think day 3 is sort of the day where you get the hardcore people. Like, it's the hardcore scouts that stay the whole week and the hardcore viewers that are here to get a third day of practice recaps. So I appreciate all of you diehards coming for these final takes. But going to the DBs from the national team, Illinois safety Sidney Brown had a really nice day today. After, I mean, he was solid all week, but really had a nice day today. Had a couple of picks. Really got a chance to play some man coverage against tight ends and receivers today, and had a lot of success there. So I was really impressed with Sidney Brown as a guy that has been in the right place a lot and finally got his hands on some of those passes today. So good for him. He was one of my big winners today for sure. And then Cal safety Daniel Scott has consistently been on this list every day. This was like a quieter day for him. He didn't get like a bunch of picks, but I do think he's definitely proved himself as like one of the better safeties in the Senior Bowl period. Just really good coverage player, right where he needs to be in terms of run support. Doing a great job. We did finally get, I think, a better day from JL Skinner, the Boise State safety, the big, 6'4", 215 safety. He's been good in run support, and he was good in run support once again. But I think he's started to look a little bit more comfortable, particularly in man coverage. And you could tell he's been taking the coaching to heart. He definitely is quicker to trigger on stuff and is playing better in coverage. So I think that's pretty encouraging if you're someone who likes that style of safety, who likes Skinner's game. And he's a very intriguing prospect, to be sure. The usual suspects at corner were once again the best guys, right? Like Kayubu Kelly had another good day. I mean, it wasn't quite as dominant as yesterday. Still really good. And then Iowa's Riley Moss, once again, just the other sort of bookend corner. Those two guys are sort of, I think, clearly above the rest of the cornerback group on the national team, at least. They've just been doing a great job, both of them. I did like Jacorian Bennett from Maryland today. I think he had a good day. He struggled a little bit throughout the week, but I think today he did have a good bounce back. Treese asks, do you believe in Desmond Ridder? I do personally. I do think that he's probably going to be the quarterback in 2023. So I believe in him at least to that extent, that like I would like to see what he looks like with a whole offseason as the starter. I think that he could at least provide better than Mariota level play, but we'll see. It's still really up in the air if they'll even give him a chance, which would be kind of sad if he didn't even get the chance. But I do hope that they at least give him this season, because I just don't see them getting a much better option without giving up massive resources to do so, and I just don't think it's worth it at this point. On the defensive line, moving on. This is a really good group. Georgia Tech's Keion White once again stood out in a big way. Really enjoyed what we saw from him. He's going to be one of the biggest overall winners for sure from just in general at the Senior Bowl. I think he's wowed pretty much everyone. I really liked Northwestern's at it's a tough name, right? Adenomua Adibawore from Northwestern. Sort of reminds me of Grady Jarrett just a little bit. They've been playing him on the interior pretty much exclusively. after he played on the edge at Northwestern. He's, a little over 6'1", 290-ish pounds, but just really, really tough to block one-on-one, really dangerous pass rusher, and just really uses his leverage super well as like a shorter player. He's definitely someone who's raised his stock, I think. Keanu Benton had a good day today again. He's probably been the most impressive overall nose tackle. I also liked Coastal Carolina's Gerard Clark. I think he's another guy at nose tackle that's been better than expected as a pass rusher. And then you've got the usual suspects, right? Like Isaiah Foskey and KJ Henry were once again just really good on the edge. Enjoyed watching them. They're both clearly top players. I like those guys a lot. Corey, asking about Ali Gay. He's been pretty quiet. He did have, I think, a sack today, but I think that was the first sack I've seen from him so far. So a little bit quieter for Gay, but sometimes it's tough to notice guys if they're just sort of holding their own. It's more like, oh, I saw that guy burst into the backfield and get that sack or whatever. So I haven't necessarily seen that a bunch from Ali Gay, but I think he's been fine. Like I haven't noticed him getting blown off the ball or anything. On the offensive line, this is a group that has been kind of meh overall, but I think North Carolina's Asim Richards has been, after DeJuan Jones left, like the most consistent of the tackles. I think he's been pretty consistently good. Not someone I really watched at all prior to the Senior Bowl. He played on the interior bit yesterday, played mostly at tackle today again. I think that's his natural position. So he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. And then, of course, Maryland's Jalen Duncan. I think you can see why he's got so much hype. He's been a little bit up and down throughout the week, but I think today was one of his like up days. And I think that I can see why people are high on him. Like he has the tools, he's big, he's really athletic. When he's on, I think that combination of size and athleticism makes him really difficult to handle for a lot of defensive players. So he's definitely a winner overall from this week. And then another sort of like underrated guy, UT Chattanooga's McClendon Curtis. I had no idea who this guy was really coming into the week. I know he had fans from scouting stuff that I had read, but I would say he's been like the most consistently good player on the national squad, like in terms of the interior offensive line. Hasn't really been like a flashy guy, but I haven't really seen him like lose reps. He's just sort of been like good, and that's valuable, So that is something that I was impressed by. And then really like Michigan's Olusegun Oluwatimi is a guy I really liked coming in. I think he's sort of just been like solid, but it's important that he's been solid because the other centers on the national team have been really quite poor, like especially with snapping, like just constant issues anytime Oluwatimi has to leave the lineup with the snaps. So I think he deserves to get props just for being able to snap the ball properly. I think he's been like solid as a blocker too, but he can snap well. So he's got at least that going for him that the other national centers don't quite have. And then just a couple other guys I'll touch on. I do think that linebackers Ivan Pace Jr. and Diane Henley from the national team are probably like the two best linebackers at the Senior Bowl period. They're both really good. They're both leaders, especially Henley. And they're both just playing quite well. I mean, Pace, we know he's got the size stuff, right? He's like 5'10", 5'10", 240, whatever. Kind of an unusual looking linebacker. Not really going to be able to play man coverage on tight ends, but I think if you get him as like a will linebacker in a 4-3, let him cover running backs and let him just fly around and make plays. I mean, I think he's a really good player. I think he's someone that's going to be underrated, even though the size is a thing. But it certainly doesn't look like it's a problem when he's playing the run. I can tell you that. And then Diane Henley is just well-rounded. I mean, he's bigger, not necessarily heavier, former DB, so his coverage is really good. But he's just such a leader, such a vocal presence. You can really tell that he just is leading the national defense whenever he's out there. So that's important to me. So I liked him. And then the quarterbacks have not been good. Like, none of them really have. But I will say that Fresno State's Jake Hayner's probably been like the most consistent of the ones on the national team. I think that for the most part, his passes go where they're supposed to. He's made some plays here and there. It's not like a ringing endorsement, but I do want to shout him out for being consistent and at least giving the receivers opportunities to make plays, which can't say that about all these guys. So that's the national practice. If you guys have questions, feel free throw those in the chat or donate to the Senior Bowl Fund, of which you can do so at streamlabs.com/thefalcoholic/tip. I think we're like just a little over $100 away from the goal. So we'll keep running it, for a little bit longer. But we're in great shape. You guys have really helped cover this trip in a big way, and it means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for that. All right, take a sip here, and then we will move on to the American team, the more talented of the two teams. And Corey, no, Hooker's not really doing anything. I think he's interviewing with all the teams, but he's not practicing. He's not recovered enough to really even do anything at this point. All right. So the American team, like I said, I think overall the American team is just better. It's a more entertaining practice. I think the practice is like run better also, but the big winner in terms of the offensive skill players is definitely Tulane running back Tyjae Spears. I mean, each of the last 2 days, he's been maybe the most electric skill position guy out there. He's just such an eye catcher. Juked a safety out of their out of their shoes in one-on-ones today. Has been really effective as a runner. And I've said it before, but like him weighing in the 200s is huge for his stock, because this was a guy that a lot of people questioned, can he hold up? Like, how many carries can he realistically take at, 185, 190, whatever he was listed at? And now it's not only like, oh, he can carry that weight, but it's like, well, how does that affect his athleticism and his dynamic playmaking? And the answer is it hasn't affected it at all. It looks great. It looks just as good, if not better. So that's huge for him. This is a guy that's probably now a round 2 pick, I would think. Like, this is the Dameon Pierce type of guy from this group that's really helped himself in a major way, for sure. The tight ends here in this group were relatively quiet as well, but I do think Oregon State's Luke Musgrave has definitely proven himself as the most dynamic tight end here. He's got legitimate long speed. I did see him really dust a linebacker. I can't remember who it was, one-on-one. And he continued to gain on him throughout the route. I think he timed in the low 20s in terms of miles per hour, which is really fast for someone that's, 6'6" or whatever, 250 pounds. Just has the good hands too. So I think Luke Musgrave, you can tell why people have been sort of hyped about him. He does have that deep speed. He's got good hands, for a tight end. That's all you need sometimes to be drafted high. So he's definitely helped himself and sort of proven what exactly he offers NFL teams, which is really good deep speed to threaten the seams and things like that, and great size and great hands. So it's a good week for him. I will say today the wide receiver group here, pretty good. Right, it's really talented. All these receivers, for the most part, have made plays at one point or another. I did not see Darius Davis out there, so I don't know if he ended up getting hurt. Like I mentioned, Tank Dell wasn't out there either today. But that just gave more opportunities to some of these other guys. And I would say Iowa State's Xavier Hutchinson was probably the biggest benefactor of those additional reps today. You can see it. Like, he's got really good size. He's just good with his routes, and he has just tremendous hands. Like, he will catch anything that's in his radius. It's really hard to dislodge it when he gets his hands on the ball. And just looks to me like a pro-ready wide receiver 2. Not necessarily the most dynamic or, crazy wide receiver 2, but I think on the whole, as like a day 2 pick, like he's kind of a slam dunk guy that's going to be able to come in and immediately help your offense. I like Hutchinson a lot. I think Rashee Rice had another really good day today as well. You can tell why the NFL probably likes him a little bit better. His athleticism is more electric. He's more dynamic. He did measure in a little bit smaller than expected. I think he's like just 6 foot instead of like 6'2", like he was rumored to be. But Rice is more dynamic, and he showed that off too. Also has the really good hands. So I think Rice definitely helped himself as well. And then a couple of the guys that just continue to just make plays every day. They're not necessarily as flashy, but like Virginia's Dontavian Wicks, another good day, just always making plays. Like not necessarily blowing up to the extent that these other guys are, but I think he's been really consistently effective whenever he's been targeted. So a good day for him. And then Ole Miss wide receiver Jonathan Mingo, not someone I watched at all prior to this week, but he's got really good feet. I like his route running. It's quick. He's physical at the catch point. He looks like a good blocker. I think Mingo is someone who's definitely helped himself stand out from the pack of sort of day 3 wide receivers with his play here in Mobile. It's been impressive. On the offensive line, there was definitely a couple of clear winners today from this group. And one of them happens to be my Syracuse boy, Matthew Bergeron. I think he was like, other than John Michael Schmitz, who, let's be clear, like without DeJuan Jones here, John Michael Schmitz is the best offensive lineman in Mobile. It's pretty obvious. But that being said, I think Matthew Bergeron had the most impressive day relative to expectations after turning into pretty solid. Like I didn't have any complaints about him. He was on my list the last couple days as being a really solid tackle for the American team. But today he was much more dominant as a whole. I thought that Matthew Bergeron had some really impressive run blocking reps today after, I think his pass protection has always been his best trait, but the run blocking really came together today. I was impressed by that. And I think he was the biggest overall winner on the offensive line today. I will say that Oklahoma's Wanya Morris really bounced back today. He had a difficult first 2 days here in Mobile, but I think he was much more solid on Thursday. Just seemed to be playing more confidently, was able to time his punch better. Reminded me of like Blake Freeland yesterday. And I think that will help him. Coaches like to see that. Like if you struggle, can you come back? Can you continue to improve throughout the week and not just, pack it in? And he's definitely done that. So props to Morris for getting back on the horse and looking better throughout the week. Interestingly, 2 guys have sort of flip-flop positions, right? TCU's Steve Avila, college center, has played almost exclusively guard today, Thursday, while Alabama's Emil Ekiyor Jr. played almost entirely guard in college and was playing center today. So that was a little bit different, right? A little bit more of a position switch, but I thought both looked really good at the new spots. I think Avila definitely has the body type to play guard. He's a really big center. So that move makes sense. I thought he looked good there. And then Emil Ekiyor Jr. may be more of a build to play center, who has played a lot of guard. I think both of those guys, if they can demonstrating that versatility to play multiple spots on the interior, is significant for their stock and finding a place for them in the NFL. Just if you're one position guy, then teams have to have a need there to really bring you in. If you can play multiple spots, it's a lot easier to talk yourself into these guys. So I think they really both help themselves as well. And then the defensive line group. This is a good defensive line group. I think Iowa State edge rusher Will McDonald IV has continued to sort of be the biggest overall riser relative to expectations. He's once again, just really explosive, really bendy, really difficult to block consistently every single day. I think he's definitely someone whose profile has been raised this week in a big way. I really like what I've seen from TCU edge rusher Dylan Horton. They reduced him inside a little bit. He's been really impactful as a run defender. He's had some sacks. I really like Horton. I think that for a 4-3 team, maybe looking for like that big 5 tech, he's definitely a guy that could fill that role. It's boring to talk about, but like Aaron's Auburn edge rusher Derek Hall, right, just continues to look really good. He looks like a first-round pick. It's not necessarily, news to anyone, but Derek Hall has continued to play really well. So he's definitely someone who has not necessarily raised their stock because his stock was already high, but certainly solidified himself as a very good player in that group. I will say that in terms of the defensive tackles, South Carolina's Zach Pickens definitely had a big day today. He was someone that I noticed a lot in the backfield. Really flashy, I think he's clearly one of the more dynamic interior players here. He's got a really good build for the position. He's athletic. I think Monday for him was really slow, but I think Wednesday he had a good day, and then today had his best day. So I think he finished really strong, and he's someone that's definitely helped himself. And then Oklahoma's Jalen Redmond, who is someone that I have liked as sort of like a late day 3 player, I think once again showed that while he's sort of a tweener in terms of size, he's really difficult to block one-on-one on the interior because of that. Has bulked up a little bit, coming into Mobile. And I like his tape. I think John Michael Schmitz really annihilated him on one play. It really actually made Redmond upset. But I think other than that, he gives pretty much everyone else fits except for John Michael Schmitz. So good for Redmond. I think he's definitely helped himself stand out too. Getting to the DBs, I do think today was the best day for a couple of guys that were a little bit quieter or that struggled early. But I think Virginia's Anthony Johnson definitely had his best day. Just really sticky coverage, broke up several passes. Anyone who's playing well against these receivers is doing a good job. Like, this is a really tough group of receivers, especially to play one-on-one. And I think he had a very good day today. And then I think South Carolina's Darius Rush really bounced back from that tough opening day where, Tank Dell cooked him a couple times. I think he's really started over the last 2 days, sort of established himself as one of the better players here. He also, I think, he had 2 picks today. You could see that burst, that explosiveness, and I believe he is currently the fastest timed player so far at the Senior Bowl. I think he was almost at 22 miles per hour, which is really, really fast. So that athleticism will definitely help raise his profile too. But the on-field coverage ability definitely has continued to look better day after day. I think today was his best day. FSU safety Jamie Robinson was one of yesterday's big winners. I don't think it was as good as yesterday, but he is someone that this team, the American coaches, trust him to go up against wide receivers in man coverage. He does a good job of it, which is rare for a safety. He also got a lot of opportunity to return punts today, so that's some more versatility for his resume. Could be something that helps him make an NFL roster, or pushes teams to draft him just a little bit earlier. And then Kansas State cornerback Julius Brents, he's been up and down, but this guy, you just have to love the size and athleticism combo. 6'3", over 200 pounds, really flashy, has some great reps and coverage, gets beat sometimes, but you can't teach 6'3", 204. You just can't. It's gonna lead to him being a day 2 pick. But if you play, that press man coverage, if you need that big corner to match up with big wide receivers, either in the slot or on the outside, I think Julius Brents is your guy, and I think he's going to make some NFL team really happy. I think he's played very well relative to expectations this week. Corey asked if I'm staying for the game. I am not staying for the game. Most people don't, honestly, because you can watch it on TV, and it doesn't really tell you that much more. I think the practices are more valuable for the scouting angle. It's fun. I've definitely heard it's a fun time. So especially if you're around Mobile, I think it's pretty cheap, if not free, to come watch the game. But you don't learn too much from watching the game in terms of scouting. It's more for fun at the end of the week, I think. In terms of other guys, I think D Winters wasn't out there today, so it was a lighter group of linebackers for the American team, and I think Jackson State's Aubrey Miller Jr. was able to step up in D Winters' absence, and I think he was the best of the American linebackers without D Winters here. So that was a nice touch for him, who was just sort of quiet most of the week, but definitely had a good day today. I do think that Oklahoma tight end, fullback, whatever, Braden Willis is sort of an interesting guy, very unique. I believe he was a Wildcat quarterback for Oklahoma this year or something. He's mostly, if not entirely, played tight end here at the Senior Bowl. I think that's not exactly what he played at Oklahoma, so I think he's kind of adjusting to that. But I do think he's a really unique tight end fullback sort of hybrid player, the type of guy that we know Arthur Smith likes, so he's someone to keep an eye on. His hands are not as good as a pure tight end, but I think that's something you can coach to some extent. I don't think he has poor catching technique. I just think he's not necessarily used to catching passes very much. So he's someone to keep an eye on, maybe as a UDFA. And once again, the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl this year haven't been great. I do think Tyson Bagent, he's the sort of guy that everyone gives a pass to because he's, from Shepherd, and he's sort of a raw ball of clay. And I think given all of that context, he's been pretty good, surprisingly so. And then I think Max Duggan has been pretty solid. I mean, not flashy necessarily. He did have a really good throw today, but overall this quarterback group has been really inconsistent. So I think like Jake Haener, Tyson Bagent, and Max Duggan are sort of the guys that I would have circled as like maybe there's something here. The other guys, it was sort of meh, So take from that what you will. I'm not really a quarterback guru. I wasn't really paying too much attention to those guys in depth, but not necessarily the most impressive relative to what we've had some of the last few years at the Senior Bowl. All right, I know Jason Gaines asked a question. 1 second. Let's see. Oh yeah, Jason is mentioning after the Brady retirement, the Bucks are over $55 million over the 2023 cap, and the Saints are $60 million over the 2023 cap. Welcome to salary cap hell. Yeah, they get to deal with what the Falcons dealt with last year, except I don't think either one is going to do the right thing and get out of it. And do what they need to do to sort of get out of it quickly. I think they're going to string it out even more to try to stay competitive instead of just taking their medicine this year. I'm not upset with those teams having to deal with some salary cap problems. That's for sure. Panthers quarterback PJ Walker about to be the longest tenured quarterback in the NFC South. Yeah, you're not wrong if he sticks around. But no, I mean the NFC South quarterback situation, it's completely fluid. Like every single team is basically up in the air with that. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's been interesting, guys. Like I said, a lot of fun at the Senior Bowl this year. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the fund. Thanks to everyone who is still planning to contribute. Like I said, we'll run the fundraiser probably for another week. I think we're really close to where we need to be. So we're not super far off. So thank you guys so much for that. It's really helped limit the amount that I have to pay out of pocket for this, and it really helps me out. If you're wanting to contribute to that, it's streamlabs.com/Falcoholic/tip. Or you can do the Venmo attached to my Twitter account. I believe it's at Kevin-Knight-12, but check that to be sure. At Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. I just really appreciate everyone hanging out and talking some Senior Bowl here. It's been a whirlwind. Got to meet a lot of people. Got to interact with a lot of Falcons and other content creators, and we're gonna have definitely some interesting guests coming on the show over the next couple months leading up to the draft. A lot of good stuff learned this week. A lot that's going to be going into my mock drafts and future articles. And the combine just around the corner, another couple weeks. And this is a good, interesting draft class, right? Sort of maybe not as top heavy with talent as in years past, but I think it's a very deep group. I think the Senior Bowl group sort of bore that out as well. We got a long way to go. Free agency is right around the corner too. The offseason is just getting started. The Senior Bowl is sort of the real start of draft season for me. So I appreciate everyone for coming along for the ride, for supporting us and making this happen here for me and the Falcoholic. Really appreciate everyone. Subscribe, leave us that 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Guys, we'll have another show for you early next week. We did, Corey, do one, but it was Aaron's show on Tuesday. We did one in the same room. But it hasn't worked out because he's had other locked on obligations when I'm recording this at 8. So it hasn't worked out since then, but we'll definitely get Aaron on next week for a Senior Bowl recap show for sure. So don't worry about that. But guys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for everything. I hope you enjoyed the hashtag content, and the content will continue over the next, several months as we get ramped up for free agency and locked out, Kevin. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah. But I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you once again for watching. We will see you early next week for the next Falcoholic podcast episode, and then of course on Wednesday night for another episode of the Falcoholic Live. Guys, thank you so much once again. We will see you then. Have a great night, folks.